So, as I said, this is day number 3 of finding joy, and we're talking about building community tonight. And by the end of this presentation, we'll have you running down a road with a pride flag behind you. so, um, a little bit about us. Yes, my it's not cooperating tonight, y'all. Okay, so I've helped thousands of people come out later in life, and Barb joined the team in 2021. We have done a lot of content creation together. We have done individual and group coaching, mutual support groups, and Facebook groups, and also, of course, my podcast coming out and beyond. Y'all have seen these pictures if you have been here the last 2 nights. These are some of the retreats I have run and some of the people that I've worked with in my program. This is who I am personally. I bring to this program and bring to everything I do all of my personal experiences and all of my professional experiences as well. And you know what? Barb does the same. Barb and I both started this work. My gosh, Barb was a little bit before 50 when she started working with me, and I was after 50 when we started working together. So when I started doing this program. So we've had a lot of life before we ever came out. And this is also who Barb is professionally as well. So one of the things I do want to talk about before we move into the joy section, and I want to really validate this, is that there is a lot of very challenging emotions in this journey. So if you're someone who is feeling all of those, I want to let you know, like Barb and I said, we have to get our t-shirts that say, this is normal.
This is normal.
This is normal. So, I was a grief counselor way before I ever came out. I got my feet wet doing support groups, working in hospitals and doing grief support groups as a chaplain in hospitals. I did a lot of grief support groups in hospice as well. So, people think that there's only 5 stages to grief, and it's a line, and they say there's stages of grief, and then, but honestly, I love this graphic because grief actually feels more like the stuff on the right side. You can have many, many challenging feelings and many, many challenging experiences when you're grieving. So when we're coming out later in life, we are often grieving. Sometimes we're getting divorced. Sometimes our relationships with our children may be changed or altered. Sometimes our relationships with our family and friends may be altered. Sometimes we may have to leave our jobs we have, especially if you're like, sometimes people are ministers or rabbis or something like that, and they're in conservative congregations. They definitely have to leave their jobs. So there is a lot of very, very mixed feelings. And also, we grieve what we didn't have. When we're coming out later in life, we also grieve like, oh, I'll never be a 20-year-old lesbian, I won't have that experience. But I have really come to believe that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is an expert on grief, who was she's now the grandmother. She's passed away, but she's now the grandmother of really the person that really started talking about the modern grief. She studied the people that were actually dying, and that's where we get the 5 stages of grief, right? And so what people did is they lifted her 5 stages of grief off of people who were dying at the end of life, and just placed these 5 stages on people who were grieving the loss of someone who died. And the thing is, some of this is true, and some of it is much more mixed up and crazy, like the last slide that we had. And like last night, or the first night when we discussed about, opening our marriages and stuff like that, that really is, I feel like there is bargaining going around. A lot of times we have a lot of anger when we're coming out later in life. And in the beginning, my gosh, denial is very, very, very true. I mean, we do avoidance, we have a lot of confusion. We go from having like incredible elation to be very shocked. And a lot of times too, we have some fear that is going on. And so it is definitely Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's cycle that I really, really like, because the reason why is, she was doing it on dying people. She did this study on people who were dying. And in essence, people who are coming out later in life are also dying to a sense of self, to a sense of who they were. You will, because we are all grown ass women when this all starts, we will keep most of our personalities and most of the things we believe. But what will happen is that we will have to reintegrate other pieces of us as we go through this process. And I love this quote by from her, is the most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, suffering, struggles, loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These people have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of a life that fills them with compassion and gentleness and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. And I really do believe that Dr. Ross really hit the nail on the head. And I have found in the work that I have done with our community is that this experience creates some of the most compassionate, gentle, and loving people I have ever seen in my life. So even though this all may feel like a tornado, which we were having here last night in Tennessee, there is actually some amazing things that can happen. And so we want to focus on the joy of this experience. And so, as we said, a lot of times people are really, really concerned about dating, finding a girlfriend, finding their person. But Barb and I, from our own deep personal experiences, believe the first thing that we really should be concerned about when coming out later in life is finding community. So, Barb, tell people how they can find community.
Okay, well, and I will back that up 150,000%, if that's such a thing, because we none of us can grow and thrive in isolation. We need to be able to find kinship with others who are just like ourselves or similar to ourselves, to have to find meaning and understanding, to see and to be seen. And so how do we do that? Well, and especially if we've never been a part of queer community, well, I have great news for you all. Queers are everywhere, and we do.
Everywhere.
We're everywhere. That's right.
We're
We
everywhere.
infiltrated every part of society. And and chances are, if you have an interest, there will be other queer people who have the same interest. So, you can lean into, you say you're a really sporty person and you like to be physically active. Hey, go join a pickleball team. Go kayaking. Oh, lesbians love kayaking. Oh my gosh.
And softball is the gateway sport for lesbians, right?
Absolutely. And I don't even think you have to be really that good at it. I think mostly softball is for the, what do they call it? The 10th inning or something, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of golf. I don't know sports. I'm an arts person. Anyway, the point is that, you get together, you have some fresh air and healthy activity, and then everybody goes out together afterwards and has built community.
Well,
It's
and also too, like the thing is that, like, for example, like hiking and stuff like that, there are LGBTQ exclusive teams and stuff like that, but there are teams where, it's just like a community team. But what we're suggesting here is that if you want to find other people that are not straight, they can often be found in places like this, in sports and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
if you love to hike, if you are a great, someone who loves to hike, meetups are a great place to find hiking groups in your area. And then it's up to you to figure out who's gay and straight in that community. We can give you tips on that as well. But we're like, especially around sports, it's a lot of queers hang out in sports. That's just, I mean, I don't have data, but it's just really something we have seen.
Absolutely. And, another arena where you're going to find a lot of queer people is in the arts.
Absolutely.
So, if you are artistically inclined, whatever that might look like, whether it's music, whether it's visual art, community theater, going to open mics, creative writing and poetry, you're going to find a queer contingency there. So, you want to go to that poetry slam session, show up with your poems and go look for the queerest person in the room and sit down at the table next to them and strike up a conversation. And finding queer specific stuff as well. Like you're right, like we're everywhere and it doesn't necessarily have to be a group that is specifically for LGBTQ people, but there certainly are lots of great organizations and volunteer opportunities where you can find um, just LGBTQ folks who are aligned to a particular thing. Like one of the things I'm thinking of is like Tonda belongs to a chamber.
Of commerce. And actually, she is an LGBTQ certified business, which
Mhm.
there's a national LGBTQ chamber. And so she's certified as a minority business, as a woman, and as an LGBTQ person. So, also, too, we haven't mentioned also, like if you're a lawyer, Lambda Legal is always looking for people to help. If you're a realtor, sometimes in bigger cities, they'll have an LGBTQ realtor association. So, in your professional area, if you're a professional, they may have some sort of LGBTQ group. One of the women in our group, recently, she works at a college. She recently joined a group at a college. And she said the first time she went, she was so nervous. And now the second time she went, like last night, she said it was just so much fun. And, they went out for drinks and she had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and volunteering is a huge way to step into LGBTQ community. Virtually every community out there has a pride celebration at some point. Look up and see who your local pride event organizers are. And often there's programming at Pride that's directed at diverse people within that community. So there might be things for young people, there might be things for older people. There'll be evening events that involve dancing and drinking, but there'll also be daytime events that don't involve those kinds of things if you're not really into it. But volunteering can be a really awesome way to step into community, but also feel like you're contributing something that's positive. And we also can't forget that, online, there's a lot of great spaces. And of course, Emery, I think everybody here has been invited to the secret
The
Facebook.
Facebook group. But if you're not, please friend request Barb or myself on Facebook, and we'll happily let you into our Facebook group. You know what
And
we forgot on here, Barb?
what's that?
TikTok.
There's a lot of lesbians on
Lesbian
TikTok.
content on TikTok.
There really is. There's a lot of lesbian content on TikTok. That's absolutely true. And, online stuff can be a real boon, especially if you're living somewhere that's a little bit more remote, or if you're just not feeling super ready you want to baby step into
Queer
finding
community. Yeah.
community in person. It can be a great place to start. So if you're not already a part of Emery's Secret Facebook group, please, join. And there's plenty of other
Groups
avenues
out there.
that
Yeah,
you.
that's where I started. I didn't have a catalyst. It took me a long time to come out. It was like a 10-year process. And the third time around that I came out or tried to come out, what I did different is I Googled late in life lesbian and I found a Facebook group. And that Facebook group absolutely changed my life. I had other women talking about things that I had only thought about in my head. So if you're really, really new to this journey and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't show my face anywhere, sometimes online is the absolute best. And if you are even nervous to show your name, if you contact Barb and I and say, hey, this is Susie Q, but I'm going to put a Facebook profile up and just have a page so I can be on this. As long as you let us know and tell us who you are, we are okay a bit. I have had several people do that over the years. No, hundreds, like that, hundreds of people have done that over the years, and that's absolutely fine. And it's really such a big deal. Like sometimes they'll come in and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to use my real profile. I used to be Susie Q." And so I think that's really great. I think online is a really good way to get started if you do not want to show up in person yet. So we want to talk about the 7 reasons why you should come out. First of all, you will find a very supportive community. um, Coming out later in life can be really daunting, but we have found that by and large, the queer community is very welcome and supporting. You will find people who understand what you're going through, and they will also support you. But what I have found is that the experience of coming out is universal, whether you're 15, 35, or 75. People go through the same feelings, the same emotions, the same the same questioning as they move through this process. So you will find people get it. You people get it. Barb?
You will feel more authentic. And, it can take an incredible amount of energy to not live as the person who you were meant to be, and to conceal who you are. And so when you can drop the artifice, when you can drop the worry about people finding out, you will the amount of energy, like you'll be energized because you're no longer trying to hold up a veil in front of you that disguises who you are. And the feeling is absolutely incredibly liberating, and it can feel like a real weight off your shoulders.
Also, too, you'll inspire others by coming out later in life. That's the lovely Barb at the local lesbian lounge here in Nashville, because you inspire others. It's never late to be late to your to be your true self. And people, I have seen so many people, I have heard so many people who have said to me, you've inspired me to do this. And that is one of the things I think is really important, is when that people who have struggled with this, or may have just fallen in love with their first person, or may have thought about this for years on and off, when they see people post 30 come out later in life, it is very inspirational to them. And they say, hey, if Barb Rollinson can do it, so can I.
Um, you will have more fulfilling relationships. Yep, that's absolutely true. And earlier tonight in another conversation, we were talking about how like attracts like, and when we're true to ourselves, when we are living fully as who we're meant to be, when we have learned how to meet our own needs and be happy on our own terms, we attract other people who are in that on that same vibration as we are. So being able to connect with people who are like us, who are at this in step with us, and who truly understand us is really, it's the basis for some really meaningful and beautiful relationships.
And these lovely women here are part of my chosen family that my wife and I are very good friends with. So you'll also be part of a very vibrant culture. We're super diverse. We go from the most flamboyant gay person into the world to the most introverted person ever. There's no one way to be gay. There's no one way to be gay. And so we are a very diverse community. And you, when you come out, will be part of this culture and all that it has to offer.
And let's also, it's really important. We got to politicize this. You're going to be part of a movement. Uh, you know, eh, what it meant to be. I think it was in 1973 or 1974 where being queer was still a pathology. And there's a lot of people who have come before us who've done a lot of work and taken great strides to create an environment and a culture of acceptance for folks who are queer. And although we have come a long way, we absolutely have, there is still work to be done. This climate, political climate in the world today can leave people who are a little more on the margins of society rather in the heteronormative majority feeling little bit worried about their future and their rights. And so, you know, by embracing your identity, by living out as who you are authentically, means that you get to claim space in the world legitimately as you are, to not apologize for it, and to contribute your voice to a cause that is worthwhile. And that means acceptance for everyone, regardless of their orientation, gender, um, or culture.
Mhm. And you'll be happier. So this is me. The woman in the background is my wife. This is my daughter's wedding. And the photographer took, I love this shot, took this shot of me because, you know, coming out later in life has led to greater happiness with me, and I know it has with Barb, and I know it has with so many people that we have come across and have mentored and worked with in our program. And you're able to live your life more authentically and really connect with each other folks on a deeper level. And there is a lot more joy. I'm not going to say all your problems go away. That doesn't happen at all. Life still happens. You know, my wife has had quintuple bypass surgery and cancer a year apart. Life still happens, and you still have to deal with things. But that missing piece-ness, that something is not quite right, does go away. And because of that, because you are living ultimately as who you were created to be, a lot more joy comes your way. Or maybe it is that you're able to feel joy much more than you had in your previous life. So we're going to end this part of the presentation is I love I love the metaphor of sunrises and sunsets, right? Because you can't tell if it's a sunrise or a sunset, can you? And so oftentimes sunsets um, often preclude great change because the next day there is a sunrise. And so sometimes an ending is really just a beginning of something else. And so I'm going to ask you, what if what you feared the most is actually the greatest gift of life you have ever received? and and with the right support, with the finding community and all those things that we have talked about, um, this may possibly be the greatest gift of life for you that you have ever received. And I also say this as the mother of four children, and I have done that. And they are wonderful, and they are very precious and a very big great gifts for me. But this change, what has happened since I have finally accepted and I finally acknowledged who I was created to be, that has been the greatest gift of life for me personally that I have ever received.